After I had my second kid in 2020, he was born the day that San Francisco went into lockdown. And so I was basically like trapped at home for 4 months. And I was thinking about how, every time I left the house as a mom of now 2 kids, I had to pack up what felt like half my house. All the clothes, all the toys, all the snacks. And with 2 kids, it's just 2 sets of everything. Like these diaper bags that you use to carry your kids' stuff, they're terrible. They suck. Feels like it was designed by a person that's never even held a baby. And I just started coming up with a laundry list of features and functions of a product, a diaper backpack, designed with the needs of a parent in mind to help parents take care of their kids and make their lives a little bit easier. My name is Meng Li, and I'm the founder of Huhu.
This is In Community with Fahad. Before we get into the episode, I'd really appreciate if you take a second to hit subscribe now. Every subscriber matters and helps the show have an opportunity to grow and reach more people. Plus, you'll be the first to hear about what else is coming your way. Thanks for being here. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Meng Li, hi. Welcome to In Community, and it's good to be in community with you today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, the way that I always start these is at the beginning, which is the very, very beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about one of your earliest memories?
So I was born in China, and I moved to the U.S. when I was about 5.5 years old. My mom moved over to the U.S. first, and then my dad and I moved over, I think about a year after she got here. And I distinctly remember we were on our way to the airport. I was with my dad and a lot of my family, and they were seeing us off. And of course, I was sitting in the front passenger seat on my dad's lap, like no seatbelt or anything. And there must have been a piece of glass, like a piece of glass that was just sitting on the dash. And I touched it. And then it just sliced my finger wide open. And then there was just blood gushing everywhere. And then I think we must have gone to the airport hospital or clinic and then had my finger wrapped up in this huge bandage. So all the pictures of me in these family photos at the airport saying goodbye, I'm wearing I just have my entire hand in a giant bandage. So that's one of my earliest memories.
That's very vivid for sure. I can understand that. So tell me a little more about where you grew up then. You said you moved when you were 5 years old. Where did your family move to? And, what was that community and environment like growing up?
Yeah. So when I moved to the U.S., I grew up in Boston. We moved there because my mom started a PhD program in Boston. And, I think that I grew up in Cambridge. And it was very much early on in my childhood. I think the community was a lot of other people like my parents, people from China in their 30s who had emigrated to the U.S. for work, for school. And then generally, Cambridge is a very progressive city, very liberal. It's quite diverse. You have a lot of people in academia, but generally I would say within the context of the rest of Boston, it was more diverse and it was a great place to grow up.
When you eventually made that move away and went to college, how did you go about figuring out, what your direction was going to be? Obviously, step one was getting out of Boston, being away from your parents, having some autonomy. But as you were through college and thinking about starting a career, what was that process like for you?
I think especially coming out of college, I had some ideas of what I wanted to do in terms of, okay, well, I studied this. I studied economics in college. I studied a lot of economic development. So I was interested in that field. But generally, I don't feel like I had a really clear sense of what I wanted to do with my career, what I wanted to do in my life. I just, I want to move to New York and I want to be near friends. I want to, it was very much driven by being in proximity to other people I knew. So moved to New York, got a job at a nonprofit that was doing economic development in New York City. Had the opportunity to work on this project within this nonprofit, working directly with the CEO on some more strategy planning, like a 5-year strategic plan, which I thought was really interesting because it was pretty different from my day to day at that time, where it was very much administrative, following paperwork and sending different paperwork to other people. And it was really exciting to be able to work on something that was thinking big picture about the organization, where the organization wanted to go for, 2, 5, 10 years from that day, and what it would take in terms of fundraising, in terms of staffing. And I found that much more interesting and than what I was doing in my day to day. And I started looking at other jobs that were focused more on kind of strategy and planning. And I got a job at a nonprofit consulting firm. What I realized was basically my entire job was marketing. It was figuring out, how do you package an organization and their product, their services, and how do you pitch that to donors, whether it's foundations, private individuals, government agencies. And so, I had no experience in this area, but I thought it was a key part of my job, and I really liked it. And so, I did some research. I talked to other people I worked with, say, okay, I'm interested in marketing, but I don't know what does that mean? Like, what is a job in marketing, and what would that look like? And so the advice I got was, go to business school. That's a good way to pivot. It's, you can, if you get a job in the private sector, you will learn a lot, and then you can apply that however you want.
So then what was that first gig?
My first full-time gig was as an associate brand manager on the Clean and Clear brand, which was within the consumer division of J&J, within their personal care group. So at that time, J&J is very different now, but at that time they had 3 divisions: medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and consumer. So I was in their consumer division within personal care. And Clean and Clear at that time, oh my God, why does everything I say sound so dated? Like, at that time,
A lot has changed. A lot has changed.
I know so much has changed, but at that time, Clean and Clear was a leading brand within the acne care category. A ton of consumers who were who were teenagers, and they really had a pretty dominant market share in that category at the time.
What made you start to think about what was next, and what told you it was time to go?
I think that going from a medium size and smaller nonprofits to working at a huge publicly traded company like J&J was a huge, pretty big culture shock and adjustment in terms of how you operate, how you work. And I think that in the back of my head, I always wanted to go to a big company like J&J to get that training. And that's sort of what they sell themselves and pride themselves on, which is we bring people in, we train them, we turn them into great marketers. But I never really fully imagined myself staying there for my entire career. I always imagined that I would do something, go somewhere smaller, do something more entrepreneurial, work at a startup. And so I would say about 2 years in, I was starting to get that feeling of, I've learned a ton. It's been a good experience. Not sure that J&J is the right fit for me long term. And at that point, I was also had been on the East Coast for a long time, wanted to do something different, really enjoyed, really liked California, liked the lifestyle. And so I started looking for jobs at smaller companies out on the West Coast, specifically in the Bay Area. And I was lucky. I got a job at Method, which, again, at the time, was still pretty a smaller-ish startup. It was doing really well, but it was about 75 people when I joined, and it felt like a good cultural fit. I really loved the brand. I really respected what they were doing, and it was a really good way for me to make the jump from the East Coast and move out to California.
So that was you going from a company of more than 100,000 people to a company of 75.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about making that move in terms of selling yourself to them? Because, I've obviously worked in startup environments as well. And, I've hired people at different levels. It can be hard to trust that someone coming from a big company is going to be able to work the way you need to within sort of a scrappier environment.
Positioning myself as someone who had the blend of both big company experience and training, but also the interest and willingness to be scrappy and to work in a really fast-paced startup environment.
How was that for you on the personal side of things?
My husband and I both were interested in moving out to the West Coast. He was super supportive. And then his company, I think maybe 6 months or so after we moved to San Francisco, he was still technically in the New York office, but then they made that conversion, about a year in.
What was the best part of working at Method?
Everyone loved the products. Like the products closet, like you could not keep that thing stocked because everyone was always trying to take product for themselves and for their friends and family. So everyone was a user. So everyone was really interested and excited about the products that the company was making, and everyone had a lot of opinions. And so it was just a time in my career where I felt like I worked with a really awesome group of people, that everyone had a lot of energy and passion and really good ideas, and people really brought their full selves to work and really put 100% into their job.
Yeah, it's funny, just even the note about the product closet. I miss that. I miss
Oh,
having
I know.
a product closet where you could
Yeah.
just go in and get everything.
Oh my God, the J&J store. Oh my God, that was amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, forget the J&J store, the J&J product closet alone. I mean, all the products from, you name it. It was pretty great. So if you were, doing so well at Method, what made you make that move to leave?
So after Method, I spent a year or so at a consumer tech startup called Kinsa. And, I think being in the Bay Area at that point in 2017, there was a ton of consumer tech, and it was a sort of an adjacent category that I didn't have a ton of experience in, that was interesting. And it was great because it was very different. It was a Series B company. There was a lot of venture. It was both a data and a physical product company, and I learned a ton. And it was a great way to learn new skills, but also still use some of the CPG experience that I had to help grow the business.
What were they selling?
So the product was a connected thermometer. So that was meant to, like, for anyone, like primarily parents and families, but anyone who needs a thermometer. But that data, that they have a ton of health data, like aggregated, which they then could sell to other companies who wanted to use that data to help make decisions. So for example, you could say, okay, well, we're seeing that the flu is really spiking in, I don't know, like New York. We're seeing that there's a ton of flu, and there's a lot of people who are looking for medical advice. And so that's pretty powerful data. And there are plenty of companies who would be interested in having that type of data to help them make decisions about their business. And so I realized I really missed CPG, traditional CPG, and I wanted to get back into that space because ultimately, and this from working at a big CPG company, is that marketers are really the ones that make decisions in companies like that. And with consumer tech and tech, it's really the technical team and the product team that more are the drivers of strategy and decision making. So ultimately, it's kind of like I kind of want to be at a place where I can have a say in what we do, both in terms of long term, but also day to day.
Yeah, I mean, in CPG, marketers are product, actually, technically.
Right.
So in a sense,
Right.
it's the same. It's just that you're also product because you're managing the entire thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus when you're in a tech company, you, as a marketer, you just sell or you message whatever it is they need to do, a product that is already done and developed, and you don't have necessarily, I don't think you have much of a seat at the table to help influence those products.
So, you got to Native as your next role, right? And you were at Native for a couple years, or actually, I guess a few years before you got to what you're doing now. So, catch me up to sort of the time at Native. What was the highlight for you, and then what was the moment that made you say, it's time for something different that led you to what you're doing now. This episode is brought to you by Philo Ads. Philo Ads is built for brands that want premium connected TV placements without the premium price tag. With a 55% multicultural viewing audience and highly engaged audiences on fan-favorite TV networks like A&E, TV One, MTV, OWN, Lifetime, and more, Philo Ads delivers a CTV experience that gets results. So kick off your next campaign with Philo Ads today at ads.philo.tv. That's ads.philo.tv.
The business, oh gosh, like 5x in the time from a revenue standpoint, at 5x while during the time I was there. And so it is wild to be part of a company that grows that quickly in a pretty short period of time. The company hired a ton of people. There was a lot of innovation that was happening, and things were changing really quickly. Had I stayed at Native, the career trajectory was really clear, right? I would have been ultimately rolled into P&G. I would have been a P&G employee, and my career trajectory would have been a really traditional brand management career trajectory at a big CPG company, which I left J&J because I knew at that point I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. I wanted to be at a smaller company. So it didn't really make sense for me. And it wouldn't have felt fulfilling to go back into that kind of a system. And so, yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm ready for I'm ready for a new challenge. I can get a new job or take some time and think about, I have some ideas that have been percolating in my head that I've been like kind of quietly thinking through, working on the side. And how do I, can I see if this is an idea that is worth pursuing, that has legs?
Where did that idea come from?
The idea really kind of got into my head after I had my second kid in 2020. And this was, he was born March 2020. He was born the day that San Francisco went into lockdown. And so I went on maternity leave, but I was also basically like trapped at home for 4 months, like didn't see anyone, with a newborn and a 4.5-year-old. And I was thinking about how, every time I left the house as a mom of now 2 kids, every time I left the house, I had to pack up what felt like half my house, like all the clothes, all the toys, all the snacks. And with 2 kids, it's just 2 sets of everything. And it felt really difficult to pack the stuff, carry the stuff, and keep it organized. And I was sort of really immersed in the baby products space at that point in life, right? And I was like, oh man, these bags, like these diaper bags that you use to carry your kids' stuff, they're terrible. They suck. They're poorly made. They're not functional. It feels like it was designed by a person that's never even held a baby. Like, does anyone, and so it just felt like it was not designed for use by a real parent. It didn't feel functional. And it didn't feel like it was designed to be high quality or something that you could use for years on end. I'd gone through, I did the research. I tried to find something that fit my specifications. I'd gone through so many different options that I wasn't happy with. And so I was like, well, and I kept thinking, well, this bag needs this. And this bag needs this. It shouldn't have this. And I just started coming up with a laundry list of features and functionality that I thought would be really useful or would be necessary for me as a parent. And so I was like, okay, well, here's a list of features and functions of a product. And then I started kind of sketching out different concepts. I asked within my network of people who, like, if you have an idea for a product, how do you get it to an end, like, finished product? And it's interesting because even though I'd worked in consumer goods my entire career. I'd never actually done that. I'd never actually gone to find a supplier, figure out how do you get from like notes on a piece of paper into a finished prototype. But that infrastructure had already existed in all the companies I worked at, right? And so yeah, but I was lucky to have people in my network who could put me in touch with the right people to get that done. And so I found a designer. He connected me to a manufacturing facility, and then we just started working on prototypes. And then I think at this point, I mean, I was still working at Native full time at that point when I had a really rough prototype. And then I decided to leave and then work on this full time to see if I could make it a real actual thing.
And now how long has it been since you did that?
Like it's been 3 years.
What's been the hardest part of doing this?
Everything is hard. I would say the hardest is you really have to be like, you have to self-motivate. And it is so different from working even at a startup. It's obviously very different than working at a big company where you have clear goals. You have roles and responsibilities, a job description. You understand what your job is more or less on a day-to-day basis. You have other people who are your boss, your coworkers. Maybe you have direct reports who do a portion of the job with you. So it's different. Like, it's pretty structured versus when you run your own company. Especially in the beginning, you are doing everything. And nobody's telling you. There's no one behind you, like tapping on the shoulder telling you, okay, well, this is your priorities for the month, for the quarter. Here's what you need to focus on. And you have to constantly think about what are your priorities? And then how do you break down those priorities into tasks to get what you need to get done? And so it never really ends in terms of the self-motivation that you have to continue to run your business, because there's no one else telling you how to do your job.
Describe the brand and what you're actually selling and what problem you're solving.
So Huhu, we make functional and well-designed products, specifically gear for parents. Our first product, which is still our flagship product, is a diaper backpack. And it's designed with the needs of a parent in mind. So it's made from really high quality materials that will last years and years. So you shouldn't have to buy another diaper bag or replace it all the time. And it's designed with features and functionality that make it easier to keep your items packed, to keep it organized, and easy for you to access. So that's our core product. And since the launch of the first product, we've launched other products to ultimately create a system of gear to ultimately help parents take care of their kids and make their lives a little bit easier.
Tell me about how you got the word out. Tell me about how you marketed this product and how you first started actually getting it into people's hands.
The baby products category, the sales channels are physical brick and mortar stores are really almost non-existent at this point. There used to be, when I think about when I had my daughter, my first kid, there were maybe 5-6 big baby stores in San Francisco. Those are all gone. And I think a lot of it is driven by e-commerce, Amazon. Especially as a parent, you need convenience. You don't have time to go in stores. And so e-commerce, and even especially during COVID's really accelerated the decline of brick and mortar stores, particularly for baby products. And so all of my business right now is e-commerce. It will probably be that way for a long time. And I would say that we have a relatively, standard playbook when it comes to brand awareness and marketing for an e-commerce business. I do a lot of work in terms of online ads and performance marketing. We work with affiliates and influencers to put it in the hands of real parents, moms and dads who have an audience online. And then I would say PR is another big driver of getting the brand and products out there.
What's been the X factor that's made the biggest difference?
Product assortment and word of mouth. And I think this is what I realized pretty quickly early on is that it's, unless you have a ton of funding, it is very hard to launch out the gate with 30 SKUs. It's difficult. So I launched with one product, one color, in the first, I would say, year. And there were some serious limitations to that because one product, one color, you're not going to be able to convert everybody. And then there's nothing for them to come back and buy, right? And so if you think about your average order value and then the lifetime value of that consumer, it's pretty limited. So pretty quickly, I had to start thinking about, okay, well, if I wanted to expand the product assortment to be able to offer more products to parents and to be able to continue to have them stay with the brand, how do I do that? And so launching more products, I think, was a unlock in terms of growth. And then also, as you build a business, you get customers. Hopefully they really like the product. They recommend it to friends. They're wearing it. People are asking them questions. They're talking about it. They're posting about it on a mom's group. I think that the word of mouth has been really, really helpful in helping grow the business.
What advice would you give to someone who is looking to follow in your footsteps and go about and actually launch an entrepreneurial venture like that?
You really have to think about the product and what is the positioning of your product, and is there a white space in the category you're thinking about for your product, and is it going to deliver something that people want and that people already can't get from another product, another brand? Because I think that, and I say that as someone who is a marketer, I think that product in the early days is way more important than marketing and branding and because you have limited people, you have limited budget, and you have to really over deliver on the product experience. And so if you don't feel like you can put out a product that is really, really good, then you gotta try again.
All right, so now I'm going to go through the rapid fire stuff.
Okay.
What would you say is your superpower and why?
I can really take on a lot of work. Like I'm
That's a terrible superpower. What are you talking about?
I can work a lot, okay? No. What I'm saying
I'm a workhorse. Come on.
I'm a worker. No. Yeah, so yeah, I think my superpowers, I can take things that are extremely abstract and conceptual, and turn it into, okay, this is an idea, but how do we actually make that happen, or how do we make that come to life, and what are the steps needed? So I can make the connection between high level strategy and conceptual work into really concrete tactics.
What is there in your daily life that's made the biggest difference for you when it comes to taking care of your health and well-being?
Treating my personal life more like a business and running it in a way that's a little bit more like a business, I would say. I know that sounds really weird, but it's like you just have to, if you have like 2 kids and a partner who works full time and you're trying to run your own business, and yeah, you just have to operationalize your personal life is what I found.
What's an example of that?
My husband and I, we've started doing this thing, which is like, I don't know, it's like you just have to do it to function, I guess. It's like we spend, when every 2 weeks or so, we have a babysitter and we go and we spend that time and we like project manage our life over cocktails at a bar. It's like crazy. So we like bring a laptop and we get cocktails, and then we're just like figuring out what are the things that need to get done and who is going to be where for the next couple months. So it's like kind of like status meetings, project meetings for our life, I guess.
What book, podcast, or otherwise that you've read or enjoyed recently do you recommend to others?
There is a podcast. It's called Diabolical Lies. You do a lot of it is paywalled, so you do have to pay for it. But it's two women, and they riff for 2 hours at a time on a specific topic around politics and culture. And they have, I would say, a pretty progressive point of view, but I think it's interesting. And so I really enjoyed listening to them. The morning show is like criminally underrated. Okay. It is like not good, but it is soap opera and it is so entertaining. Okay.
Okay, lightning round.
Lightning round. Okay.
Just quick responses, no time to elaborate.
Okay. Okay.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Day or night?
Day.
Teleportation or time travel?
Time travel.
Breakfast, sweet or savory?
Savory.
Me too, same.
Mm-hmm.
What's your go-to hype song?
I would say my go-to hype song is Taylor Swift, Ready for It.
Why?
Oh my God, it's just like, it's such a good banger, right? And it's from her Reputation album, which she made after she got canceled, and she came back and made her comeback, okay?
Wait, did she get canceled?
She got canceled. Remember the whole Kanye West snake thing?
Oh, I mean, she didn't really get
Oh,
canceled.
no, she got I mean, she did get canceled. Like, she disappeared for a year.
Really?
It's hard to imagine because she is so big and so
Everywhere.
popular now, and like everyone loves her. But there was a time in like 2016, 2017 where she got overexposed and everyone hated her. And then Kim and Kanye accused her of lying. And then like they called her a snake and everyone, like, that whole thing. And so she got canceled. Like that entire album was about her like getting canceled.
Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for joining. And yeah, I appreciate making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
This episode was brought to you by Philo Ads. Philo Ads delivers premium content, a CTV first audience, and zero stress ad buying that works for everyone, from scrappy startups to savvy marketers. So go ahead, shake up your ad buying strategy and launch your next campaign with Philo Ads today. Make sure to visit ads.philo.tv to learn more. That's ads.philo.tv.